remember when the war ended because it was on my birthday, on May the 8th.
Bells were ringing. Church bells never rang during the war at all. People knocking on the door and banging on the window for us to wake up because the war had ended.
I could never understand where they all came from, you know. But you could see them all coming and hear them all coming and making a noise. And my mother and I were just stood on the end of the street looking down at St Nicholas Road watching them.
They said, oh, come on, we're all going down the centre, neighbours. You're coming down. You know, my mum got the pram out and put the baby in it. And we all walked down to the centre. And there was, must have been hundreds, thousands of people down on there. And they were all singing and dancing and drinking. And doing knees up Mrs. Brown, I can remember that.
And there was a soldier dead on the floor. We managed to get him up onto his feet. He did manage to say where he lived. I don't know how, but he did. And Margie and I took the soldier with us and went to the front door. And his mother was absolutely mad. How dare you bring my son home drunk? It was disgusting. I mean, we only picked him up off the pavement to take him home, but we got a real telling off. Yeah, that was awful. Well, it was funny, really.
One of the strongest memories I have of the war is when my grand's house got hit. I was sleeping with my gran downstairs in her room. The air raid must have gone off, the siren. I woke up and there was all these sounds, bang and bass. She used to keep all her bone china in a cupboard in her room. You could hear it being smashed, and she was cussing. Because all my bone china, oh, we're going to be killed. She said, we're going to die. And I started crying. She said, you can shut up and go to sleep. And the next thing I knew was that I was being carried out. Aunt Pete came into the room. She picked me up, and I think there was two men that were carrying my gran at the back. Everything was pitch black. And we were all outside. We were walking down the garden path, and everything was sort of, I could see the searchlights. Bombs were going off, and my aunt froze. I was in her arms, and she said, crying, she said, I can't move. I'm stepping on somebody. And the men at the back carrying my gran were saying, keep going, keep going. We moved further along to the other end of the shelter, and we went inside, and my mum was inside the shelter. She caught hold of me, and my aunt started going hysterical and saying, there's blood, I'm covered in blood, my feet are covered in blood.
The day I arrived in Cornwall, we were taken to a type of hall, and a label around your neck to say your age and your name. And people from that area could come in and go around and pick who they thought they wanted to take on. There was a farmer there, and he wanted to take me to the farm, but because I had a brother, he wouldn't take two. So in the case, really, it depended on who would take two. Well, I couldn't have left him, he was like 5 years old. Eventually, we got a person to come over, and she said, my mum says she'll have you both if you can bring some sheets with you. And then when we arrived there, his mum, her mum was lovely. Her dad was funny, so we used to laugh a lot. So I fitted in quite well. And then as we got a little bit older, 12, 13, we used to go out on the night time, and because we liked sailors. And in those days, it was like innocent, right? Put that in. And we used to sort of pick up sailors or soldiers what were there and go to the cinema. And I think it was threepence we had to pay to go in. We used to, as I said, we used to have these sailors' trousers that they bought for us, and that we used to walk about with our white jackets, and I thought we looked lovely, we looked really smart. To be quite honest, I was happier there than I would have been if I'd have stayed in Bristol. So it was quite lucky, really, that I was evacuated. But it didn't work out for everybody.
Well, we used to go down into the shelter every night. That's all I remember about the war, until the night we got bombed out. That night, the planes came over but they were so low, and the noise of the engines was horrific. They hit our house, but it dropped just outside the shelter and didn't go off. My dad came through and to see if we were all right after the raid, and the incendiary went off, but luckily my dad was ready to throw something straight on it. I was scared in the dark because we had no light. We were buried, and I remember seeing the wall separated from the kitchen door. I was a little girl and I had to be carried. I was only about 4, 5. And the main thing I remember is being brought out into the light and seeing the gas main light and crying. Growing up in the time I grew up in, I think I lost a lot. My education was zilch, really, because going from one school to another and being pushed around from pillar to post, you lost touch with your friends. And the friends that I used to play with before we were bombed out, I had to come back after a couple of years and get to know them again. And they had to get to know me. But we managed it because we're still friends now.
Growing up in the war did affect me in some ways because I could never stand in closed spaces, and being in crowds I would panic, and I think a lot of people did.
I used to hate the noise of aeroplanes at night going overhead. I used to go very tense, you know. My body used to tense up. I used to hate the noise of aeroplanes flying at night, and that took years to go away. I'm still suffering now. I never really got right until I was about 30, and I'm still suffering now. It's a lifetime. It's not just for the war, and you think, oh great, it's ended. But you know, it just carries on with you.
A lot of young people lost their lives during the war, really young people.
My opinion on war is that it's a utter waste of time and a waste of lives. And I don't think I would ever think now, when I watch things on the television now, and I just sit there and think, children being killed and horrible things happening, but why?
War is useless to the extent that people lose their lives, and it's all unnecessary. And it's all the younger generation. With all the worldwide wars going on, they can see through the television cameras what's happening in other countries. And really, they all ought to be thankful that it's not happening in this country. It's only because we've experienced it that, you know, but my generation, look, is dying out, so they will not know. It's up to your generation not to let it happen.